Hello and welcome to Divorce Literacy. I'm your host, Alex Sanchez, and today I have the privilege of spotlighting a former Brooklyn prosecutor. Tom has experience in business and career evaluation, which is key because he assures that his clients leave nothing at the table. Tom has years of experience, and I love always conversating with my dear friend Tom because he knows finances. He knows exactly what's going on in the market. He has so much experience that he's able to give you advice on what to look for and what to look out for in the future as far as business. Help me welcome my colleague and dear friend Thomas King. How are you, my friend?
Alex, thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. I've been an attorney for over 20 years. I started off as a prosecutor, as you mentioned, and where I find that having that background as a prosecutor is I don't get intimidated, and I have a skill set of there are times that you have to the judge says, okay, well, let's try that issue. And you've got to be able to think on your feet and be prepared. And so that's something that I bring to the table that a lot of my peers don't necessarily have, is a comfort and ease, in the courtroom. Because at the end of the day, it's what the judge decides. And having a rapport with your local judges, having that experience, knowing what it's like to, pivot and address an issue on the record, is something that you need. You also touched a bit on my business background. I worked on Wall Street. I had, it's my Series 7, my Series 63.
Oh, wow.
I've done a lot of land investing, over the years. I also went through, a really bad divorce myself, which was one of the reasons why I switched my career to family law. Is I didn't want to happen to other people, what I saw happening to me, because I was like, wow, it's so easy to be taken advantage of in this system if you don't know what you're doing. And not everybody was, had gone to law school, had practiced, and I had the resources to protect myself. But a lot of people go in not knowing what to expect, not being prepared, and getting fleeced. And both husbands and wives, wage earners or not, you've got to understand that you're coming into the lion's den, and it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to be prepared. One of the things that I see that happens is other people end up making decisions. Family, new boyfriend, new girlfriend, a lawyer. People just walk away. Well, let somebody else handle it. And if that happens and you're in the system, you really just have to be prepared. Don't let yourself be, a worst case scenario. One of the things before we got on that we were talking about was, interest rates. Oh my God, and when I hear it every day, I see it. People saying, "Oh, I'm at 6.5%." When I went to go look at a mortgage, and yeah. But then we also talked that's 20-year average. I do believe that we will see, a lowering of those rates. There's some macroeconomic indicators that are out there that we will, but economies move at a much different time frame than people that need to or want to buy a house a year or two from now. And we talked about one of the tools that you're using these days is, a HELOC, an adjustable to get people through. One of the things that I'm saying that people are coming in for a divorce, and I look at that, 3.5%, 2.5%, 4% interest rate that couples got into 2, 4, 5, 7 years ago. That's an asset. That has value. That's $1. That's $1,000, $2,000 a month.
I love what you're saying. More on that. That's amazing.
In income to them, and that can be negotiated. So often, we talk about, well, who's going to get the China? Who's going to get the sports car? Who's going to get the 401k? All of those are great. Don't forget, that 20-year at 3% is an asset no different than a 401k. And you want to find an attorney that treats it that way, that will get creative, that will do the numbers and run the numbers with you and saying, Okay, if he wants to stay on the mortgage, sell it to him. Treat it like any other asset. Make up on the other side. Saves everybody money. Don't give up a 15 years left at 3% because that's an asset that has money that can be valued. The value is necessarily who wants it more. Okay, I know that you want to stay in the house, but separate yourself. It's just an asset. Sometimes, and that's why you also need an attorney. You can't negotiate yourself for the things of a marriage. It's just you're at too much of a disadvantage from a negotiating standpoint. You need a good cop, bad cop. You need to be able to negotiate that at some arm's length. And negotiating the house, if you really want to stay in the house, then you got to play it, and you got to play it right, and you will get there. And be willing to pay a little extra and present to it. Find out what the other party really wants. And you negotiate and do everything you can, to keep that 3.5%. Agree, sure, you'll stay on the mortgage, and agree to do that for 5 or 6 years. Apply a number to that as an inconvenience, and work out the divorce. The home is the single biggest asset.
I agree with you, and that's the reason why I wanted to spotlight your firm and your experience, because finances has everything to do with a divorce. Unfortunately, that's actually one of the biggest percentages why people get divorced is because of finances. I always like to say, when it's so easy to go into a marriage, but it's so difficult to get out of a marriage because they don't give you all these guidelines, and you don't talk about finances when you're tying the knot or you're getting married. But once you get divorced, now all these laws and regulations, and sometimes you marry into debt not knowing that the other spouse has debt. So it's key to work with an attorney like Tom that knows finances. He knows exactly where the market is at, and his experience speak louder than words. I mean, you mentioned you're a Series 6 holder.
7 and 63.
And I mean, those are the difficult licenses to obtain. Making him an expert in finances. Tom, I just want to share something that you and I share, and this I expressed to you. I mentioned this to you when we first met. I also went through a divorce, and I remember during the divorce, I remember we were doing everything amicably. We settled on this and this, and the problem was that we had people taking advice from here. Well, oh my God, you should have done that. You deserve way more. And what happened was, unfortunately, we acquired the services of an attorney that wasn't financially knowledgeable. He knew the basics, and we left a lot on the table. But we were so we were going through so much emotional stress and all that stuff that we were like, let me just get rid of this, and so I always recommend an attorney like Tom, because for that reason, you know exactly where the market is at, what belongs to you. I want to share a conversation that you and I had by email. We were actually doing a study case, and this is why I love talking to Tom, because he always I can depend on Tom to brainstorm on a case. I sent out an email about a case where the in-laws gave the money for the down payment for them to purchase a house, and years after they're going through a divorce. What happened? And now the in-laws, guess what? They want their money back. I gave you this money, but it was technically a gift. And Tom, you want to elaborate a little bit on your response and how I love, by the way, your email response to that. That was amazing.
Well, one of the I forget exactly what that email response is, but one thing that people don't understand is, and it's probably about this, is a thing called a constructive trust. So you would be surprised at how many people are living in a home and they're not on the deed. And at some point, a relative, an in-law, ends up on the deed. And then, what do? Well, if it's just on paper, you're not on the deed, you don't have a right. That's not true. And you need to, dig into the weeds and know the case law and understand that we have things called constructive trusts, where somebody bought the property on your behalf, and you look at the totality of the circumstances. Hey, we were starting off, we didn't have the credit, an in-law ended up buying the property for us 15 years ago, and now they're claiming that I was just a renter this entire time. No, you weren't. They bought the house, and the legal construct for that is called a constructive trust. They bought it for you in trust, and you are the one that is the ultimate beneficiary and the rightful owner of that. And out of the gate, you need an attorney that understands those sorts of nuances, because you don't want to find that out 6 months, a year, 2 years into litigation. You need somebody that can bring it to a head at the beginning. The other thing that with property is finding a good attorney that understands that the finances of real estate and how that impacts the marriage, and being able to put a foot forward for a settlement. The longer you are in court, the more expensive it is. And you want to be able to get in and out emotionally and financially, being able to move something quickly. Don't underestimate that, and getting it right, out of the gate. But back to your question, what was that the issue where, when in-laws are involved, you need to look at, was there a constructive trust, created? And, the issue of whether or not something is a gift. If somebody, a family member, gave some money, at the end of the day, they're probably going to get that dollar back that they put in. But how much money do you want to spend fighting it? And, don't. My recommendation is, I see too many people spend money where the juice ain't worth the squeeze. They'll spend $20,000, to get $30,000 back in court, and for me, that's not, that's not where the value is. Decide what you can on those sorts of issues, and save the litigation for the big one. Who stays in the home, who gets to keep that 3.5% mortgage, and pick your battles.
As you know, every divorce case is unique. There's no two cases that are the same.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone that's maybe entertaining the thought of divorce, or starting the process, and maybe they haven't acquired the services of an attorney? What advice would you give that individual starting the process? What should they start preparing?
Gather and know your finances. When you say I do, that's super easy. What you don't realize is that when you said, you stood up there and said I do, there was this laundry list of things that you are agreeing to. And you're agreeing to basically form a corporation. You're no different than AT&T. And you have made a corporation that is going, that when the corporation decides to break up, there are certain rules that will be applied. Same thing with a marriage. And the people that don't understand, their finances, and make copies of those things. It's amazing. People, you're thinking about a divorce, and next thing you know, you're out of the house, and whether, for whatever reason, and you might not ever be able to get, I know that folder is there with that information. Don't rely that it's going to be there. Understand your finances. Understand what your monthly burn rate is. Understand where the income is. And have that documented, and have that in a safe place. Save it, to the web, or make copies, and keep them at your sister's house. But if you're thinking about it, educate yourself about your own finances.
That's great. And Tom, so what advice you give someone what qualities or criteria so an individual look for in an attorney before they acquire their services? Like what kind of interview questions should they? Because obviously that they're going through a lot of stress. They'll just go with the first one that pops up on Google, and that's, I don't, me personally, I don't recommend that. But what's your take on that?
personality, go in and meet with somebody, find out if their philosophy is something that matches yours. I've had people come in and just through an interview, I'm like, I don't think I'm the best fit for you. And I will find somebody, that say, this is the person that you need. There's areas of expertise, that you might want. My area of expertise is, business valuation, family and special needs. That's really, I get a lot of people that, my peers that send me cases, that involve, the intersection of one or more of those things. So personality matters. You're going to need to trust your attorney. And if you don't trust them, you gotta move on. I also would recommend it's somebody that's all they do. Divorce law is there. Listen, if you're a good divorce attorney, you turn away more clients than you take, and there's no reason to be a jack of all trades. It is an area where the law is changing weekly. This past week, we had a seismic change in how cohabitation, is addressed. We had a big change in domestic violence as well. A couple of cases that have come down, and you need somebody that they're in the weeds in that all day long. They know, how the judges are going to be handling certain things. Because that's all they do. And so find a specialist, find somebody that only does divorce, and find, somebody who your personality, meshes with them. And, you make a decision between, big firm or a smaller firm. I'm a solo. I have, an excellent staff. I think my paralegal and my clerk are, top notch. And we have a team. There are some people that feel better with, a larger firm. They want, 40, 50, 100 attorneys. And it's a trade-off.
For those watching this right now, what would be the difference? I know it, but what I'm going through divorce. Should I go with a bigger firm? Should I go with
Well, I think you should go with a smaller firm for bang for the buck. If you have finances aren't an issue, and you think that there's probably going to be an appeal, and if you say, I am not going to let her, have this under, or him have this under any circumstances, and, I've got the money to go to bat on it, you might want to go with one of the bigger firms, because they'll have a background and a breadth and bring in different players, different experts, and that can be something. If you're looking for bang for the buck, find a firm where you like the attorney. One of the things that when people do go to big firms and they're not happy and they end up switching midstream and they come to me, one of the complaints that I get is, Tom, I loved so-and-so. Halfway through, I stopped hearing from them, and it was an associate who, frankly, she, they looked like they were, just wet behind the ears. So one of the things is, if you come to a small firm, you come to me, you come to one of my peers, I'm the one that's going to be handling the case, and I'm going to handle it.
And that's key. That's key, because they know they're getting you, not and that's it. That's important. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, Tom, with the age that we're living in, where technology is at the hands of everyone, you got Google, you got GTP, and everyone has information. It's so important to get solid information from an attorney, folks. And I say this from the bottom of my heart: get information directly from a experienced attorney like Tom. Don't make decisions based on what Google tells you or what all these platforms are telling you, especially when it comes down to financial decisions. As Tom mentioned, the law changes every 6 months, every year. So you can go ahead and Google something. It might not even be updated. So it's Very important for you to get in contact. How can people get in contact with you if they want to acquire your services, Tom? What's the process? Guide me through the process. Do they get in contact with you, your firm? They set up an appointment, consultation? What's the process?
Easiest way, two things. I'm going to go back real quick because I think it is a good point. You asked, why, big firm or small firm. I have a small firm because I like what I do and I like building those relationships.
Great.
I had a client come in and say, Tom, you're recommended to me, want to talk. We went through their case and they had, significant, they had worked in Denmark for a number of years. There was a pension there was an asset there. And I was like, there's going to be a fight over assets in Denmark. You want to go with a firm that has a presence there. Don't pay me to learn Danish law. Find somebody that has it. I sent them to a larger firm that I knew had a Benelux, presence, because I didn't want them to have to pay me for me to be my, first, foray into, what would be a narrow issue of having a deposition, in Dutch or in Danish. But back to now your second question of how to contact me. Easiest is by email, tom@thomaskingesq.com. If you Google my name, fortunately, there's really only one Thomas King who does matrimonial law in New Jersey. So Divorce Thomas King will bring that up. And, if I don't pick up the phone, somebody in my staff will, and we can schedule a time. I offer a, free consultation, and I go to, and I talk in peers, and some we talk about it, and some of my peers, don't do it. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable, taking somebody's money if they're not my client yet. And come and sit down with me for half an hour. And if there's some reason that I don't think that I'm the right fit, I'm going to send you on. And I don't need the, $200, $400, $500 to tell you that I'm not the right fit. And I think that's just, the way that I want to run my business. And
I know for a fact that you're person contact. You like to deal with people face to face, and you like to get their body language and see exactly where what the situation is, emotion, because you can tell a lot what a person is going through with their body language. So I know that that's something that you're firm with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You need, if at all possible, sure, Zoom, we all got really good at it. Here we are. And you can do, when you have to, and you use that. But if you can, come and sit down, because it's through that conversation. It's through, you ask the question and you get the answer, but then you see body language and you say, I need to drill down on this. And what's, most people don't know what's important. And it's only through a conversation that you can find out those things that, like, wow, a judge would really find that, very important. What, you gave up a career, you had that option, but you ended up moving, following them here. Okay, that is going to impact it. Oh, wait, you have a child on the spectrum. Oh, that's going to impact you. Oh, you do have, when did you buy that house? Oh, okay. And did you refi? Oh, 3 years ago. Okay, great. And understanding that there's that asset there, asking the question, how much have you talked about, before? At the end of the day, this divorce belongs to you. It's not mine. And finding out the conversations that have gone on beforehand that can help you, reach a settlement, for your client, and a settlement that's, fair, equitable, and that they're happy with.
Yeah. Tom, what in your experience, what makes a successful divorce, in your opinion?
Understanding it's just business, and not using the divorce process to right wrongs. If so many people want to, make a judge or somebody say, oh, they did something wrong, they did this, and just breathe, separate, let's talk, because that's not what this process is about. This is your AT&T. You started a company 10 years ago, 3 years ago, 25 years ago, and now we're breaking up that company. And don't let the litigation process be where you try and right wrongs. And if you see the other side righting wrongs, use that against them. Use that to where, give that up, doesn't matter. Use that for a financial gain, because 10 years from now, you're going to look back on it and it's about the financial breakup that happened, not whether or not somebody, admitted that they were, lousy at something. Doesn't matter.
No, you're 100% correct. Absolutely. I like what you just said right there. Tom, another question I have for you: is there life after divorce? And if so, what's the step? I mean, what do
absolutely. And getting through it, understanding that it is, emotional, and it is one of the biggest things that you will go through, and not being passive about the healing process. One of the things that I do is I have a number of therapists, of groups. Self-care is important. And
especially with mental, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's so. Is that something you would recommend someone to, like, maybe get a therapist?
And talking, interesting thing, for men, you're going through divorce, and you've had a divorce, you've got like a 25% greater chance of losing your job in the next year than if you didn't go through the divorce, for no other reason than, emotionally, you didn't know how to deal with that. Men too often, we're not raised where, you have that communication, you have that healing, you have practiced the art of self-care. It's like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. Well, it's going to rear its ugly head in a way that you're not going to be happy with. As a man, if you don't address it, your next relationship probably won't be as successful, and you are at risk for losing your job. And those are just numbers. That's just data. And so you need to address that head on and find out what it is, for the support, because it's there. And, wives and women, in my experience, tend to be a little bit better at that, but they need to be reminded, you need to make this, part of the process. And there is a lot.
Valuable advice there that Tom has given us, folks. I mean, I couldn't agree with you anymore, Tom, because I'm actually reminiscent of when I went through a divorce, and you're 100% right. Especially men, we're not used to, like, expressing our feelings. We're not used to, like, shedding a tear. We gotta, like, have that guard up, and yeah, I carried a lot of baggage during the divorce, after the divorce, and even when I try to move on with a new relationship, there was baggage that I had to address before getting involved in a new relationship. So I agree with you 100%, and I'm also here to confirm what Tom is saying. There is a life after divorce if you work with someone like Tom, a professional that will guide you through the process.
And Alex, with that, I would also say that, going to an attorney that, that doesn't take a boilerplate settlement agreement, off the shelf and just say, oh, you're going to fit in this box. Every divorce is going to be different. And the risks for returning to litigation after the divorce is done is important. Addressing, and your attorney, whoever it is, needs to sit back and say, okay, what do we need to do now so that in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, you're not back in court again? And if there is a conflict later on, especially if you have kids, what can we do to make that as inexpensive and fair a process? Using parenting coordinators. Okay, you're probably going to have some issues, parenting your kids. And don't let it boil up to where all of a sudden you're filing motions and you've got post-judgment, child care, litigation that's going to cost you 40 grand. Agree now. Here's a name. when we disagree, this is the person that we will ask to help resolve it. It can save you, time and money, in the future. And, keeping the stress from the kids of a divorce is hard enough, as it is, without having a poorly drafted settlement agreement that doesn't try and foresee, some of the issues that might come up in the future.
As you can see, I mean, Tom, I know that we're doing a Zoom video over here, but it's clear if you see the passion that Tom has. I mean, the way he speaks, the way he handles. I mean, and that's exactly, in my opinion, that's key when acquiring the service of the divorce team is having the passion, having the experience. And you have that, Tom, and that's amazing. That's why I wanted to spotlight you today. Throughout your years of handling so many cases, any memorable cases that impact you that I know, without going into any detail, but any cases that really, like, wow, I mean, the outcome was.
Well, being understanding, there are times that I've looked back and, we've spoken with the other attorney as we're finishing it up, and we're going, we're lucky that our clients found us, because this could have gone off the rails and they could have spent every penny they had. And we worked together to, fashion an agreement where, both parties didn't necessarily get everything that they wanted, but kept, an eye towards what was important and worked with them. And sometimes, and thought outside of the box to say, okay, here are the trade-offs. And recently, those have been coming up a lot. When you treat that, 2.7, 3.5%, 20 or 30-year mortgage as an asset, and not just put people through like they were so used to doing, like grunge, you sell the house, or, grunge, one person stays on it, understand that has a value. That was a great investment that you two made as a couple, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago. Don't just walk away from it. And treat it with like you would any other asset. And when you've done that, that's a good thing.
Great advice. Folks, I mean, you see it. I mean, the way Tom handles financial issues and just advice, you trust me, you don't get this with every attorney. Tom comes with a lot of experience with finances. Reach out to him. He's always available. I'm going to include a link for Tom's website below this video. Feel free to reach out to him, make an appointment for a consultation. At a minimum, just speak with him, because he brings passion, and that's exactly what you need when you're going through a divorce. Tom, any final thoughts that you can share with us?
Just and again, don't use your divorce as a way to right past wrongs. And just keep your eye on the prize of moving forward, of getting this thing done, and understanding at the end of the day, it's a financial transaction, and you need to keep your financial hat on, not your, I want to be vindicated, hat.
No, absolutely. That's great advice, because you know what? You get married, and as we mentioned earlier, you sometimes married into debt, right? Yeah. Go through a divorce. Now you're dealing with finances, and what happens when you don't have a game plan, when you're not dealing with a professional like Tom King, and you don't have a game plan together to get out of financial burden. All you're doing is just carrying that to the next relationship, and who knows how long it's going to last. So, one thing that I love what you said, Tom, is educate yourself on finances. Seek professional advice. Try not to seek advice from colleagues, friends, because all they're going to get, they have their best interest in you, but they don't have, as Tom mentioned, the laws change, not only for divorce, but also for finances. So, something that you could have invested in 10 years ago is not the same investment that you're going to do 10 years from now. It's you educate yourself. So definitely reach out to Tom. His link to his website is right below. And Tom, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to spotlight you. We're gonna put this everywhere, and we look forward to growing together and helping more clients going through divorce.
Alex, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Look
Thank you,
forward to
brother.
speaking with you soon. All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.